Make sure to check out my UGC group for anime and Roblox accessories. Join the group, follow me on Roblox, and hit the sub button so we can reach 115k. What's up guys, it's Punchy, and today we're diving into one of the most controversial updates in recent Deepwoken history, the Elder Primadon boss. There's been a lot of confusion and frustration around its release, and honestly, I do think it's worth discussing. Rather than rushing in with an ignorant reaction, I decided to wait a week to get a better grip on what's actually going wrong here and what is also good. Some of the issues might be patched out by the time this goes live, but the concerns are still worth airing out. Quick disclaimer, this is going to be my honest take both as a tester and a player of Deepwoken. I know people joke that I'm Deepwoken's biggest glazer, but today I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. I love the game, but that doesn't mean I'll ignore when something feels off, so let's talk about the Elder Primadon. To recap, the original Primadon boss was outdated. The fight was old, easy to cheese, and barely worth farming. The devs spiced it up by introducing Elder Primadon, a stronger optional variant. This new version brought boosted stats, a few new attacks, slightly tweaked visuals, and most notably, a new armor drop. It's not a full rework, just a more punishing revamp, and that's where some issues start to show. Let's start with the positive things, as there's actually some solid upsides to fighting this version instead of Primadon Classic. First off, it's new boss content. It's optional, but meaningful, so if you're into PvE, this gives you something fresh to take on with your friends, and that alone is a win for the update. Visually, Elder Primadon got a subtle glow up. The size adjustments and new attacks genuinely do change the pace of the fight, and that is always going to be good. You can't just autopilot like the original, and it feels like a real monster. The Titan Slayer's adornment, the armor drop, is super interesting and really a success. It introduces build flexibility with an active damage boost and player HP revealing, and that is great for support, ganks, and group fights. It's rare and super expensive to craft, but it offers something new that we haven't seen ever before. And let's not ignore the community impact. Teams of players, both friends and randoms, are teaming up for these fights, and that's really cool. There's a natural tension during farms. You could get ganked mid-fight or form a shaky alliance, and that doesn't happen anywhere else. It makes the overworld feel alive. That kind of emergent gameplay is always welcome, but now let's talk about the elephant or monkey in the room. Making a harder version of an old boss is tricky. You want to raise the stakes without making it feel cheap, and Elder Primadon misses that mark in some key areas. Let's compare it to Heart of Enmity, another viable option that many PvE players like to farm for relics and items. So that boss is clearly tough, but it's fair. Its attacks have readable windups, clear animations, audio cues, all the aspects that make it hard but rewarding. So when you mess up, it's on you, and that's that. It takes a team with knowledge of the boss mechanics, dedicated players with their roles on the team, and gives very good loot to every single person participating. When you win, it feels earned, but Elder Primadon doesn't feel quite the same. Based on what the community is saying, instead of leaning into creative mechanics, it kinda just cranks up the numbers. There's more HP, more damage, faster attacks. That is all something that Elder Primadon has. The danger kinda feels artificial, like the difficulty comes from stat padding and not newly designed attacks. This isn't exactly new because corrupted mobs already do this, and they have more health, more damage, but nothing changes in terms of actual combat behavior. They're just spongier and more annoying to deal with. So Elder Primadon follows that same trend. Some of his new moves are fair though, and I think that is worth discussing. The slam that forces close range parries is cool, it's new and it's readable. The one-shot stomp gives you a chance to back off, and those are legit upgrades. But then there's recycled stuff. A lot of his old stomps and swipes are just stitched together into punishing combos with the same animations but different patterns. Some of these attacks are just faster with deadlier damage and very little lag in between each switch up, and some people are saying that this is kinda lazy. I don't really think this, but we're working with what we have here. The main complaint about some of these attacks is really just boosting the speed, the damage, and the HP of the boss, because that's not really innovation, that's just turning up the dial and calling it something new. The Heart of Enmity spaces out its attacks and reacts to the player, while the Elder Primadon kinda just overwhelms people with back-to-back strings, and if you get caught once, it's kinda over. Testers have argued that overworld bosses should be a little bit harder since they can't wipe you, as a player, but boosting stats and recycling moves I feel isn't really the answer. I also feel like there's a lot of engine issues fighting against the player, like the rocks flinging people or him jumping around, like that is not supposed to be happening. now for the part that really got players heated, the cost and the reward. On launch, Elder Primadon costs 4 Sinner's Ashes to summon, and that is ridiculous. Sinner's Ashes are one of the most valuable resources in the entire game, essential for corrupting your bell, and that's not something to throw away lightly. Spending 4 of them to summon a boss, that's steep, and let's talk about the loot. Beating Elder Primadon gives you a main chest with relics and legendaries and a few lower tier drops. It sounds good in theory, but in practice, it's kinda underwhelming based on the cost. The Curse of Ramen's Ember is a pretty nice touch though, since it's rare and useful, but it's not enough to carry the entire loot pool. The real value lies in the relics like the Idol of Yun Chol for bell rerolls, the Sinner's Ashes to realistically run it again, and the Armorer's Needles for buffing your equipment. Everything else is either mid or redundant, and yeah, sometimes you don't even get enough Sinner's Ashes to recoup the summon cost. That kills the incentive to grind. Why would I be running one of the hardest bosses in the entire game if the reward loop is kinda broken? The Titan Slayer's Adornment is a standout reward, no doubt, but when one item is carrying the entire loot pool, it's hard to justify doing it more than once. One last thing, and it's kind of a big one, players are getting their loot stolen without ever being ganked. I'm not talking about PvP or looting dead bodies, I'm talking about literal chest sniping from people that didn't do anything, they just showed up. In most boss fights for Deepwoken, the chest kinda spawns on anybody who dealt damage, and that makes sense. Anyone can still steal that chest, but at least you still have the initiative and it's tied to your participation. But Elder Primadon, the chests spawn in fixed locations, so now people just crowd the spawning area, wait until the boss is low, and dip out and steal the loot. They didn't really fight, they didn't really help, they just waited and watched and finessed the loot. There's more I could say, and the community has obviously more to say, but those are the big ones that I got. The difficulty feels kinda padded, not earned, the loot is bloated and doesn't match the cost, and the chest mechanic straight up encourages freeloading. So honestly, if I were to solve this issue, I think it would make most sense to actually spawn a chest on people participating, those that did a percent of the HP, and you know, those chests can be accessed by anybody after they spawn on a player. Out of all the bosses in the entire game, I always see people backing up and going to the Primadon chest spawn, and that's a problem. This proposed mechanic wouldn't kill farming, it wouldn't kill ganking, but it would just give you an advantage and would actually incentivize attacking the boss instead of running around. Elder Primadon is a cool concept, it brings players together, offers a new challenge, and adds some unique gear to the mix, but it needs some refining and better balancing. Of course, if you have your own opinion, please leave your thoughts down below and I'll tell Agamatsu and the devs who designed this. Thanks once again to all the supporters who motivate me daily and directly help out this channel. If you want to join as a member, go down below, but besides that, my personal Discord, Guild Discord, and my UGC group are linked, so check them out. Thanks once again, and make sure to like and subscribe. It's punchin' time.